Hi, everyone. Welcome to Two Bald Guys Talking Safety. I'm Langdon DeMett.
And I'm Julian Taylor.
And welcome to our podcast. Welcome to Two Bald Guys Talking Safety. I'm Langdon DeMett here with my dear friend, Julio. How are you, Jules?
I'm good. I wanted to say Julio saying hello there.
Hello then, Julio.
Hello.
Well, that's good because today you need to be on top of your game. We are here talking about two bald guys discussing technology.
Two middle-aged bald guys with a slightly hairier guy.
Yeah,
talking technology.
Yep.
And probably talking buzzwords as well, I would think, whilst we're about it.
We're here with a good friend who happens to work with us. I've worked with for a number of years. He is, as Jules would say, not as follically challenged. He has flowing locks, Justin Moats. Hey, Justin.
Hello.
I have to say, I think he's actually in denial, Langdon. But
no,
yeah,
there's locks of hair. But we're talking a little. So we'll let Justin give a background in a moment. But what we've been thinking about is discussing, and we've had multiple guests lately. But health and safety, where we're seeing it going, how we're continually growing the health and safety field, how organizations are maturing, and then now the new world of technology that's not really new, but it seems like AI is on the precipice of taking over the world. So how can we use this to actually help our businesses?
It does feel like a thing that's grown arms and legs recently, doesn't it? It seems to have just grown so quickly that it's really interesting to consider sort of how we can use it now, but also where's it going to go in the long term, and what do we need to think about in terms of that? Which is why we've brought on somebody who's far more educated than me and you, Langdon,
truly,
to talk about that.
Yeah. So Justin, thanks for joining us.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Would you like to give a little intro to yourself?
Sure. Justin Moats, have been in the EHS software space for a long time, really a little over 15 years now, working primarily in product management roles, but really spent a lot of time thinking about different ways to solve the problems that the health and safety professionals are facing. So looking a lot at software technology, kind of the different ways we can help better solve some of the problems that the EHS people have day to day.
What Justin is not saying, he has been so blessed and fortunate to work with me at multiple companies. And our friendship just carries through. But
that's true.
I don't want a smart remark.
I can relate to the pain on his face at this moment.
I've been fortunate to work with Justin, like I said, for a number of years with how we can better integrate certain aspects of technology, how we can make things more effective, more efficient, like we always talk about for EHS professionals. Because there's, I think, a lot of things we look at, we try to make easier from a process standpoint when it comes to our own organizations. But if we don't have tools that actually help really streamline that, I'm not going to say duplicating, but we're not making things more simple. So I think it's what we were thinking about with this conversation is what are some technology things we can look at? How can we actually make a valid or a value added, I should say, impact? And what can we do, whether it's from the frontline workers or even just how can we utilize technology to actually make a change?
We hear this term bandied around all the time, don't we, of AI? But what in reality is AI, and what I suppose some real world examples of it, because it's not actually always really well described to people, is it? And I suppose our audience is not made up of tech geeks. So it's I think a good starting point is, what is AI?
There's lots of different technology out there that people call AI. Some of it's machine learning, some of it's true AI. Really, I think for this audience, just people need to understand it's that the technology is out there and look at what it can do. So getting super down in the details of what's a LLM, what's machine learning, kind of AI, we can use the term more broadly. I think that's okay. Unless people are really interested in it, then by all means dig in. But understanding the technology landscape, whether how it can help you, exactly which piece of broader AI technology and functionality it's using, probably doesn't make a huge difference. So I think I would just say understand what's out there, how it can help you. Look at kind of really the problems that you have and how it can solve. Because what we don't want is technology for technology's sake. That's something that over the years, I think we've kind of, as a EHS software industry, I think EHS in general, hear buzzwords, see technology, try to put it in place, but it doesn't really solve a problem. It actually makes it harder on the day to day. So really, but that's where I think AI is exciting, because it brings in new opportunities to say, here's real world ways this can help you. Some of them are pretty light touch, and it's actually something that you could go implement today without having to go through adding a bunch of hardware and trying to really figure out the problem that you're trying to solve.
We've seen so many changes from technology where, I think about when I first joined right out of my master's, joined a company where it was, the whole thing was the new, and we've talked about it before, online health and safety training. Oh, this is truly breaking barriers. But then you hit the part of, well, how do we do the hands-on? Well, then you realize, well, that's because it's not the cure-all. That's a blended approach. Then you start looking at other technology. How can we utilize our systems, technology systems, for streamlining our OSHA reporting or reporting to HSE, whatever it is. And now we're looking at how can we get better data coming in. And AI is one that. So Justin and I work, for listeners, Justin and I work very closely on the same team, pretty much talk every day. And I am very notorious for not wanting to really use AI or understanding, should it, well, I can do that on my own. But here recently, even trying to come up with some different ways of using AI to make at least quicker judgments or quicker assumptions, so that then you can kind of tailor it. And to me, that's when you start thinking of how can we use what's really available to expand maybe a knowledge we already have, or even hitting other areas of growth. I mean, technology is only going to continue. So how can we do that? And that's everything you said just kind of makes me think about progressing that.
That's one of the advantages of sort of AI broadly, as we talk about it, is it can be each of those different things that you talked about, Langdon. It can be something very small to help you just get done with some of the administrative tasks that don't really add value to your day, or it can be all the way up to computer vision, watching the people do jobs and understand ergonomics, or are they using PPE? And there's a wide continuum of ways it can help you, which I think really makes it valuable for everybody. It's just a question of understanding your need, what's out there, and sometimes just asking questions to say, where else could this potentially help me beyond what I'm thinking, because it can meet you really wherever you are in your EHS journey, but also your technology journey.
I suppose it's that question, isn't it? Like you say, of how does it help us to be better at health and safety, and how does it allow us to do things that we maybe not doing at the moment. And again, you think about some of the perennial challenges that we have globally, I would say, not even in specific geographies, but things like underreporting. So, for example, if we can use AI and we can link it into things like CCTV, where it can identify ergonomic issues, it can identify people being in the wrong place, it can identify hazards, for example, that we know don't get reported. You can start to see a value there, can't you?
It really does. It helps you with all those things. The flip side to it, and where you really need to be kind of look at it with a thoughtful eye, is it can also overwhelm your systems. So the video AI is a really good example of, it can find situations where a forklift was too close to a person, on the other side of a stack of boxes or something like that, that you probably never would have reported, and never would have realized. But it also can just overwhelm you with some of the near misses, the things that are really low level, that just then it clogs up and you miss those higher severities. So with everything with technology, it's about finding the right balance for you of picking up the things that add value, but not overwhelming you with things that don't really need your time and is pulling your focus away from what really matters.
That almost links into another question, which was, I suppose, starting to think about some of the fears that people have about AI. And one of the classics is this going to do me out of a job? And I suppose I'd be really sort of interested to hear your thoughts on that one, Justin, in terms of that conundrum.
Yeah, I don't think it will. I mean, someday we may all be taken over by robots, right? But I think in the short term, what it does is it helps you do better, helps you get time back to really focus on the things that matter, the ways that you can solve the problem. What AI can help identify hazards. It can identify, if you upload a picture, it can tell you, these are some of the unsafe conditions. What it can't do a good job of telling you is how to fix that for your environment and how to communicate that to your people. So there's going to be no, at least in the short term, no replacing the person who can come in and say, okay, this is exactly how I solve this problem with this piece of machinery or this walkway, and then communicating that to people in a way that they can understand, making sure that your people at your locations understand what they need to do to be safe. There's just no way that the technology as it stands today can do that. But what it can do is help you. AI technology is 24/7 a day. It can go look, see things that you would have missed. It can work all the time. And it can also look back at some of your historical incidents, things like that, in ways that you could never have done to help find those trends, find the things that you just didn't know about before, and flag things that you need to look at moving forward. So there's a lot of power. I think we're a long ways away from where it realistically is replacing people, large scale. What it does do is, particularly, we talked to a lot of EHS professionals. They're busy. They don't have time. They probably aren't necessarily as resources they need to be. This can help get you back to doing the things that you want to do, and they're really adding value.
I think that's a classic point, isn't it, Langdon? Which is we see all the time is you never see a health and safety team that's too big, do you? It's generally they're sort of under resourced, if anything. So it's interesting to sort of hear that thought that it again, it could help those under resourced teams to be more effective. Yeah.
But I wonder, and I think this is for me where it is determining it. Is there a line where to ensure that we're using it correctly within our processes? What does that really look like? How do we ensure that? I guess that's the question. How do we ensure that we'll just use AI for this sake. How do we ensure that we're using it properly and we're knowledgeable to use it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think there's kind of two sides of that question. One is, what's the best way for me to use it? How am I making sure that I use it the right way? And this is going to sound a little silly, but ask it, right? If you're trying to figure out how can I use ChatGPT or some of these other technologies best, ask the question. Describe who you are, what you're doing, the size of your company, things like that. Give it some of that information that really sets the scene of who you are, what you're doing, and say, how can AI help me? It does a surprisingly good job of telling you how you can use it better. So there's a lot of value you can have just by asking that question, or asking the question of people who who are kind of doing these different things, looking around at some of the other industry stuff. I think the other part of that, that's implied there is, how do I know that it's telling me the right things to do? And I think the reality there is, it's not always going to be correct, right? We know that there are going to be mistakes. It's looking at existing information. It's going back through. It could be looking at information that's wrong to sort of synthesize and give you your results. So you do need to look at it with a critical eye. But again, we're looking at it and saying, does this help save me time? Absolutely, yes. Does it have to be perfect? I mean, when we're dealing with people who make mistakes, right? One of the things we see with some of the technology, like self-driving cars or some of these other things, does it have to be 100% perfect, or is it good enough to be better than the average person? When you're using, AI to let's say look at pictures of observations people are putting in and identify hazards, does it have to be perfect and identify 100% of those? Not really. It just has to be better than the average person out there walking around looking at it, identifying the hazard themselves. So you as a health and safety professional can probably look at it and identify 100% of the hazards. The average person walking the floor, probably not. So if AI gets you an increase in that just by being able to upload your picture, then you are a step ahead of the game. And don't look at it to be 100%. It's never going to, never is a strong word, but it's not going to be 100% right now. But it can give you significant gains above what you're getting today.
Great conversation there with Justin about AI and potentially its impact and what's going to happen with health and safety. Join us again in a couple of weeks for part 2.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Two Bald Guys Talking Safety. Don't forget to follow and subscribe wherever you stream your podcast, or you can visit us at evotix.com.
And if you've liked today's podcast or you found some value from it, we'd really appreciate it if you could head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review or a rating. It really means a lot to us. Thank you.